Welcome to this week's episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in as little as 15 minutes to build your dream business. And now here's your host, the Visibility Wiz, Cindy J.
Hi, I'm Cindy J, the Visibility Wiz. Welcome to this episode of Biz Success in 15, where top experts share hot tips and strategies that you can implement in 15 minutes or less. Today, our guest is Kate Swoboda, also known as Kate Courageous.
Hey there.
She is a facilitator and speaker on the topic of habit formation and psychological courage, emotional resilience, and the author of the forthcoming book, The Courage Habit, and that's going to be out May of 2018. She also speaks on women's leadership and well-being. Kate teaches about the research-backed habits that cultivate more courage and emotional resilience against stress. In another life, she was a college English professor, and she kicks up her heels and keeps it low-key in Sonoma County wine country. Welcome, Kate. It's a pleasure to have you.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you. The pleasure is definitely all ours. So excited to go a little bit deep with you about this. It's so interesting, the courageous habit. I love that name. And first, I'd like to ask you if you can share a personal or business challenge that you had to overcome in order to achieve your level of success.
You know, what comes to mind is not one that I've overcome, but that I think is the constant work of overcoming or working with, and that is the sort of perpetual fear of, am I even doing this right? Do I know what I'm doing in marketing? I mean, I run a life coach training program. It is what new and emerging coaches feel when they are first becoming coaches. I know it's something that all of my colleagues, many of whom have like this lovely list of accomplishments. The internet is fluid and changing. Business is fluid and changing. To be an entrepreneur, I think, is to almost constantly wonder, am I doing all the things I need to be doing? Is there something more? Should I be investing my time over there instead of over here? And that is just constant emotional work. And I see that as being the work that I primarily do that keeps me in the game, because what I see more often than not is what happens is people get burnt out and they get tired. Right. And then they stop being consistent about their marketing. And then they go, well, I'm not making enough money, so I might as well give up.
Right.
I go, well, if that's, if you have to see money, if it's not a passion project enough that like you can't deal with the years of like investing until you make money, investing your time until you make money, then yeah, you got to let it go. But those people who come out making the money, frankly, they have to survive the dips and the valleys, and that's something that I just don't think gets said enough. I think that, with all the different 5 steps to success and this, that, and the other, marketing secrets and stuff like that, like it doesn't get said enough that there's no way you're not going to have a dip or a valley in this journey.
Right.
Most people have it from the beginning in the first few years. There are a couple lucky people who bust out onto the scene and they go viral right away and they have a ton of success. Well, their valley comes later. But like everybody has some kind of a valley, and being willing to work with what comes up at those times, that's to me critical.
And those people that do get the success really fast, that have the valleys later, I think a lot of them have a different type of background. I mean, everything comes from our backgrounds. So it's, where are you? If you've done this type of work before, you can jump in and it's very similar to what you've done before. But if you're a brand new entrepreneur and never done anything like this before, it's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I came from the social services background. To me, it was a different, completely new world. So I had my dips and valleys, as we all do.
Yeah.
And I know that your work is rooted in the idea that there's no such thing as fearless. So how is becoming fearless related to perfectionism?
So, I mean, if you want to be perfect, don't ever be afraid. Don't ever show that you're afraid if you are afraid, and try to figure out, the 3 steps that you can get in 4 easy payments of $500 over the course of 6 months. Fearless is bullshit. It doesn't exist. And anybody who insists otherwise, I kindly but respectfully would say, come on, get real. I don't think fearless exists, but I absolutely think that fear does not have to control your life.
Right.
So I'm not into fearless, but I'm into fear, less. I define courage as feeling afraid, diving in anyway, and transforming. Feeling afraid because you're not going to get out of that part. Diving in anyway because, what are you going to do otherwise? Stay stuck. That doesn't seem like a recipe for a good life. And then transforming because that's what always happens, even if it's just like a little tiny inch. When you're willing to say, here's this thing that I'm afraid of, and I'm going to go for it anyway.
Right.
So whether you're talking about going after a tangible dream, like I want to become an activist and make a difference in the world, or something that's more intangible but still really important to you, like I want to become somebody who's more patient and trusting with the people that I love, it doesn't matter. It requires courage. You're going to feel afraid. You're going to not know what you're doing. The important thing is not to get stuck in the fear or think that because fear is coming up, you're doing it wrong.
And I find too that some people resist even that they're afraid in the first place. A lot of my clients will tell me, well, I'm not afraid to be visible online. I just don't know where to start. And I'm like, there's a little bit of truth to that, but there's a lot of fear in that statement. Because if you don't know where to start, you're saying, and really whenever I've dug down deeper with them, they're afraid of making the wrong choice. I don't know where to start. So they're afraid of making the wrong choice. It's still that strive to be perfect. I have to make the right choice the first time, whenever really any choice is the right choice. And you're going to learn from it. And you can always course direct later.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just absolutely love that. I've never heard anybody saying there's no such thing as being fearless, but it's so, so true because everybody is afraid. You can listen to multimillionaires. They still deal with fear, and the difference between the successful people and the non-successful people. And successful people have learned to step out and be courageous regardless of their fear.
Exactly.
So, love that. Can you explain how the neuropsychology of habit formation works?
Well, I'm going to really distill it down, right? Because if you were really a neuropsychologist, you would certainly be a lot fancier than I am. So here's the thing. So habits are controlled predominantly in a part of the brain called the basal ganglia. And I like to think of the basal ganglia as being like the project manager of the brain. Your brain is getting all these impulses. The basal ganglia is going, I've seen this before. This means this. You need to go do this. The basal ganglia is thrown whenever it gets something unpredictable, something new. So when you have a habit that is entrenched, that's something that you've been practicing for a very, very long time. And the example I like to give is this one. Habits work on a cue, routine, reward loop. And there's a cue, which is like a trigger, and that could be like fear or anxiety. There's a routine, which is a response to the cue. That can be like opening up many bottles of wine. And there's the reward, which is the relief you feel from going into that routine. And so, of course, in a case like addiction, chemical addiction, there are other things going on in the brain as well, opiate receptors and things like that. But the basal ganglia, when it finds something that is effective for a particular cue, it likes to go back to that again. So if you feel a cue of anxiety and the basal ganglia remembers, oh yeah, wine, that was a lot of fun. Last time you felt anxious, you felt better.
Right.
Let's do that again. It's going to send out that impulse. It's going to remind you like, hey, there's this option that you have. So habits can be fear-based habits, like these certain things that we do as a response to fear, or they can become courage-based habits. And that's what I'm talking about in the courage habit. So some examples of fear-based habits would be perfectionism. That is a response to feeling afraid. I'm going to try to do it perfect. Self-sabotage. That is a response to feeling afraid. Like it's really intimidating for me to go after this big dream, this business that I want. So I talk to the absolute wrong, most negative wet blanket person And I don't even realize it until I've done it 20 times that it's a pattern I go into. Because if that wet blanket person convinces me that there's no point in going after my dream, then I won't do it. That's the reward. The reward is not always like a good thing. The reward is whatever decreases stress. If I get intimidated and then I don't go after the thing I want, my intimidation or my stress goes down. Martyrism and people pleasing is another common fear response. So I want to go after this big dream. Oh, but you know what? That would be so selfish of me. Everybody else needs me.
Right.
And then the reward is I get to feel needed by those people, and I don't have the intimidation of going after that big dream. And then, of course, there's pessimism. And pessimism is like, be realistic. It's not going to work out. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Nobody like me could do this.
Who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? Exactly. So these are all responses that we have to fear, cues of fear that we have.
Right.
And my work is really about like, how do we notice the routine in the middle? Because again, no one's going to become fearless. So that cue of fear is not going away. The routine in the middle is the part that we have the most control over. So how do we create those courage-based habits? And in the courage habit, one of the things that I talk about, not one of the things, the whole book is about these 4 predominant behaviors that build courage. And I often think that courage and emotional resilience have a lot in common. So when we're talking about the neuropsychology of courage, we're talking about how do you get clear about old ingrained habit formations that have infiltrated the way you think and behave, and then start rerouting those so that the ways that you think and behave in response to fear change.
That is, it's very, very interesting. A completely different perspective and viewpoint than what a lot of us are used to hearing about habits and change. Because a lot of it's like, well, just start with your thoughts, but it's that response of your thought where you need to concentrate to be the change, to become courageous. With your book, The Courage Habit, I know there's 4 parts to it. And can you explain a little bit what the 4 parts are and how it can be applied in business and in marketing?
So sure. So first I'll briefly explain the 4 parts, and I might need you to like drag me back around to make sure I tie it to business and marketing. So you just left off with something great, which is you can't just think your way through fear. Fear is not logical, it's primal. So the first part of the courage habit, and all 4 of these different behaviors or actions that you can take to become more courageous individually and on their own, they're all great. But put together, they're really powerful. So the first part of the courage habit is access the body, because you have to really identify fear sensations before they can hijack and overtake your thinking. So accessing the body, really getting somatic, really understanding fear isn't logical, it's primal. We feel it in the body, so we got to deal with it in the body. The second piece is listening without attachment to the inner critic voices. A lot of people are like, tell fear to F off and kick its ass and all this. I'm like, no, it's trying to tell you something. You need to listen to what it's trying to tell you, but without getting attached to it, aka without thinking that you have to do what it says. And after you've listened without attachment, reframing the limiting stories that come up. And this is not just like woo-woo life coach talk. Cognitive behavioral therapy, narrative therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. There are a number of different disciplines in psychotherapy that totally support reframing ways of thinking that are not helpful for you. And this is not positive affirmations either. This is like a very pragmatic. If I notice in business and marketing that I keep having this thing come up, comparisonitis, this thought that's like, well, what she's doing is so much better than anything you do. It is very pragmatic for me to stop and go, okay, I'm going to reframe that story because it's limiting. And I'm going to notice that like she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing. I need to keep my eyes on my own right now. That is an example of that. And it doesn't go like crazy. So the 4th part of the courage habit is to reach out and create community. Fear can get really loud in isolation, and having other people who share courage-based values and who are really in your corner is really critical to seeing the things that you want to do in the world actually come to light.
How would you apply each part in your business? Let's say for somebody who is just afraid of being visible. There's a lot of people out there that they're afraid to be their authentic self. So always trying to mimic other people, comparing themselves.
About, someone might have some comparisonitis,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing that I would recommend people do is really drill down to the body and access the body. Notice how that's showing up for them. Notice the sensations or fear sensations that come up when they go into that space. And then to listen without attachment to the voice that's saying, you should be doing it like this person over here, they do it better. Noticing that, reframing limiting stories, which is the example that I gave a few moments ago, and then really reaching out and creating community, letting other people in your life, of course, making sure that they are people who are going to share some of those courageous values with you. Letting other people know, like, this is something that I'm struggling with, because when other people are having a harder time, you get to be that person for them, reminding them to stay the course. And when other people are having an easier time and you're the one feeling stuck, it's really helpful to have someone else remind you that this is temporary. It helps you to get perspective.
Thank you. I love that. Taught by my mom. You always want to hang out with the people that you want to be like. And that's where the community comes in. You start finding those people that have the same values, the same beliefs that you do, and that honestly love and support you for who you are. And they also support you with your dreams and goals and don't knock them down. So that's so important. Community, I think, is probably one of the most overlooked strategies and parts of being successful. Can you share a business building strategy that our listeners can implement in 15 minutes or less?
Yoast SEO plugin for WordPress. If you have a WordPress-based site, I implemented that plugin at the recommendation of a SEO specialist I was working with at the time. And in 15 minutes a day, you can easily optimize existing content so that it is more search engine friendly and more likely to be found on Google. So that would be something that I think has a great return on investment of your time.
I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. To me, it's one of the best little plugins out there. So thank you. Yeah. And can you share your gift with our audience? I know that you have something really awesome for them.
Yeah, well, I was going to share with everybody the Shift Plan and the Courageous Living Planner. And in my mind, both of those are related to the Courage Habit, in that the Shift Plan is about really getting clear on what it is you want. The Courageous Living Planner is really about how do we plan out the year that you want. And in fact, in 2018, I'll be running a Courageous Year e-course for my subscribers that will be free. The Courageous Living Planner will be in tandem with that. But just in general, I think that with the Courageous Living Planner, I've created the planner I always wanted. So when I say planner, I don't necessarily mean date book. I mean a way of really getting focused on a specific aspect of courageous living each month of your life. And sometimes that focus is like lean in and push a little harder. And sometimes that focus is like slow down, draw back, give yourself some breathing space.
Right. I love that you put these together. The Shift Plan workbook is for clarity, because that's the first step to success. Then you follow it up with the Courageous Living Planner of actually how to achieve what you're clear about. That's really brilliant. So I love the way you put those together. So to get Kate's gifts, the Shift Plan workbook or the 2018 Courageous Living Planner, you can visit Biz Success in 15, and you can re-listen to today's show for any golden nuggets that you might have missed. All links that we've spoken about today will be on there, including a link to her book. Kate, do you have any parting words?
Whenever I do parting words, I always like to remind people that there's a lot of power in 5 minutes. And I think it's great that you're talking about business strategy in 15 minutes, because the idea of like executing a bunch of different business stuff probably feels really intimidating. So I encourage people to really just believe in the power of 5 minutes, that if you spend 5 minutes accessing the body, getting into the courage habit, that's 5 minutes well spent. If you spend 5 minutes on your business, 5 minutes is better than no minutes. So really making it digestible is important. And I think too, just really remembering you can do this. You can do this. So
you can do it. Thank you. Great. The power of 5 minutes. And to Kate, I want to thank you very much for being our guest today. It's very enlightening. I love your words of wisdom. And for our listeners, if you enjoyed our show and you learned a lot from Kate, be sure to share it with your friends. You'll want to visit Biz Success in 15, where you'll find all the links from today's show, and you'll be able to re-listen to Kate as well as catch up on other shows you might have missed from other top experts. While you're there, be sure to grab Kate's free gifts, the Shift Plan and the 2018 Courageous Living Planner. So big hugs, and be sure to tune in to Biz Success in 15 next week for more tips and strategies from more top experts. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Biz Success in 15. For all links mentioned in today's show and to watch or listen to previous episodes, visit bizsuccessin15.com. Thanks so much for listening, and be sure to tune in next week for another amazing guest.